Welcome back to another Sweet Hunter Fighting Breakdown. A newer video, Terence Crawford's sprint workout. This is for Box Raw. I think the last video I broke down was also from Box Raw as well. I've actually got some in there, yeah, it's actually pretty decent. So check them out. But I don't know, obviously, again, inferences on all these videos. We don't know when this training was done in relation to upcoming fights. We don't know their whole training week, their training plan, anything else they're doing. So I'm just going to comment on what I see at face value and try give you some value of what, when, why, how, and how you can potentially use it or not use it. So, morning sprint workout, here we go. 3K warm-up jog, 12 sprints, and then 12 30-second. Okay, so I'm assuming it's 12 sprints with 30 seconds of shadow boxing in between. Well, we will see. We will see what's going on. So it looks like they're all suited up as well. So I wonder if this is part of a... So this is the thing, right? When people are doing things in sauna suits, it should be a acute strategy, as in a very short-term day before strategy to lose the final amounts of water weight. There's no point using a sauna suit or anything similar however many weeks out or just randomly, because you losing that water weight doesn't serve you any purpose. You need to rehydrate anyway. So just bear that in mind if you're randomly wearing sauna suits. I'll say he's got gloves on and everything for it. So they're starting with their 3K jog as their warm-up. Cool. I mean, I guess that's typical boxer stuff, so probably relatively easy. Alright, let's see what we got. Alright. So sprinting over flat ground, 12 sprints. And then this is their 30 seconds of shadow boxing, I guess. And then they sprint, and then they jog back. Okay. I think, yep, alright, so they're doing 12 of these. I'm pretty sure that's flat ground. I can't tell by camera angles, but I think it's flat ground. So let's start with modality and we'll go from there. So typically I don't recommend sprinting over flat ground. You severely increase the risk of hamstring injury. I mean, considering team sports, no, number one injury in team sports is hamstring injuries from the amount of high-speed running and sprinting they're doing. And these are athletes that essentially run for a living. Boxers don't run for a living, so I don't believe it's a good choice to sprint over flat ground. Even just having an incline with a hill will drastically reduce your risk of injury because you limit the velocities you can reach. And also you can't overextend when you're sprinting because the ground in front of you is elevated. So hill sprints are a better option there. Then you've got, if you're insistent on doing it on flat ground or you don't have hills, 10-meter shuttle runs is another option. Dr. John Babry's new research, which will be published soon, which he mentioned on the podcast, shows similar adaptations to sprinting on a bike. So you can do something like 10-meter shuttle sprints. Again, because you have the change of direction, you have a larger mechanical stress. So more stress on the muscle and tendon, better adaptations in that. The other thing I'll comment on is holding a phone while running. And honestly, this is the biggest pet peeve of mine. I see it all around the streets, people running while holding their phone in one hand. Something to understand is the feet follow the hands. So whatever your hands are doing, your feet are doing. So if you're holding a phone in one hand and your other hand is open, you're going to create some form of funky imbalance with your feet. And if you just go sprint or run and you clench your hands, open your hands, or do something different with your hands, you will feel a difference in your feet. That's just something to be aware of generally. So I would choose not to hold your phone while running. Now, in terms of these sprint intervals, I highly recommend you check the first link in the description because Andrew and Usher and I just launched a pre-sale for our new Secrets of Combat Sports Strength and Conditioning. And he's going to run through all his research in sprint intervals with himself and Dr. John Babry, how you use heart rate data and muscle oxygenation data to individualize your conditioning. So you're not just doing random shit. You're not just going by random arbitrary heart rate zones. You're not just doing a bunch of zone 2. You're able to individualize your training based on your data. And that is if you're an athlete, do it yourself, or you're a coach doing it for athletes. So make sure you check that out. It's 60% off pre-sale and ends end of next week. So make sure you look at that now because it's the cheapest it'll ever be. Now, if we come back to these sprint intervals, so you essentially, sprints are seen as an anaerobic activity, right? It's without oxygen, it's high intensity, it's high lactate. Okay. However, no activity is purely anaerobic because no activity is purely without oxygen. If you do one sprint, you're still going to have energy contribution from the aerobic processes. Now, with repeated sprints, it becomes even more aerobic, as in more energy is supplied from the oxidative processes, for example, in these, as the sprints go on. So depending on what you're trying to target is maybe what you will do. So this particular session, because you're also doing more work between the sprints, and so you're reducing recovery, you're making this session more of a quote-unquote aerobic training session because you're getting a lot of energy contribution from the oxidative processes and you're not recovering completely between the sprints. So this would be more of a, you could say quote-unquote cardio or conditioning style session. Whereas if they ran the sprints and they walked back and they had, say, full 2 to 3 minute rest, then you may be looking at a more speed or power-based sprint session. So just manipulating these rest intervals are going to give you different adaptations. So what they're doing here is saying 12 sprints with shadowboxing in between. You're now dipping more and more into aerobic processes as you go through. Now that means, well, by the end he's not even sprinting, unless he did sprint already and he's just coming to the end there. But regardless, the quality has to stay high with each sprint. So each sprint has to be maximal. Now that's hard when you're doing overground sprinting with the fatigue and the potential risk of injury, which is why it's potentially better to do things like short shuttle runs, even hill sprints, bike sprints, etc. But the goal is that you're targeting the adaptations within the muscle to be able to use oxygen better. And that's typically through the mitochondria. And if you check out the course below, Andrew Usher is going to take you through all of that. He's a wizard in that domain. Now, we're looking at developing the ability for the mitochondria to switch on faster so we can use that oxygen, quickly get into an equilibrium state, and then be able to switch off in between efforts and have muscle oxygen saturation essentially resaturate within the muscle so we can recover between efforts, between rounds, etc. And that is how you can develop better conditioning through these types of sprint intervals. So just bear that in mind. Again, depending on how you set up your rest is probably the adaptations you're going to prioritize or target within that. Again, choose safer modalities. Don't do it in sauna suits when you're not cutting weight just before something. Ideally, don't hold your phone as well. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything around these sprint intervals for this. So make sure you check the link down in the description. And I'll see you in the next video.